Hello, folks. Happy 4th. And today we are going to talk about what is really the process of renovation and the most cost effective and the best plan for renovation and what is the best way to finance that. So, our show continue. We do not really spend any time whatsoever on our bios, our intros, or anything. We have Galli Lama with us. And Galli Lama, go ahead, take it
Yeah.
away.
Well,
Ask
Rich,
me the question.
I'm super excited about this topic because it's we're going to get into renovation, the
Yeah.
planning side, and then also the financing side. But where your expertise comes in, Rich, is on the front end on what's the smartest way for somebody to plan for a renovation before they even start swinging a hammer. So that would be my first question to you. What are those things that people want to prepare for?
Okay. So basically, I can tell you the process, but you're the money guy, and you're gonna tell us where we're gonna get the money to do this. But I always, as you know, my company name is Value Max, maximize the value. So you cannot maximize the value if you don't plan well. Because a lot of time I have seen people, they just have afterthoughts. And that's the reason renovation budgets
Mhm.
go out of budget. This is the problem we have in our profession, that people never finish on time and they never really finish on budget. And
Correct.
part of the problem is that they don't have their plan right. I have seen many people, they start their kitchen renovation and then they say, oh my God, I should have end up doing the floor afterwards.
Mm.
And that's really exactly the wrong sequence. So it's very, very important to have the right sequencing. But before sequencing, you need to have the right plan. And actually, I do have a video on kitchen renovation, and that's what I do talk about. That if you're doing the kitchen renovation, what should be your sequence? And matter of fact, one of my client asked me that question, and I wrote down and I spell it out step by step. I don't have that in front of me. If you guys want to go that detail, you should watch that video. But over here, I'm just going to talk briefly on overall plan.
Yeah.
So whatever you are trying to do in life, it's best that if you talk to whoever your partner is, whether that is your business partner or home partner, your spouse or your significant other, you need to sit down and write down the plan together. So you guys are in this thing together. And then look at what the budget is and then stick with your plan.
Mhm.
So, for example, if you are going to do a kitchen renovation, please think ahead of time that do you need to also do the floors. It is not a good idea do your kitchen now. Well, everything is doable, but it's not going to work cost effectively
Mhm.
and time effectively for you if you have afterthoughts on, for example, the floor. Even in the kitchen, I want to give you example. A lot of time people say, oh, my appliances are fine, I want to use the same appliances. And then they have a bigger vision and then they end up making the kitchen, they're getting the cabinets and all that, and then they decide, oh, I don't really like my current appliances. That's a little too late. Likewise, I had another client who said, look, I really don't want to put brand new cabinets. I want you to just repaint my cabinets. I hate doing that, but it was a close friend of mine and they didn't want to spend the money. And they said, I want to really paint it. And then, of course, I end up bringing people who do such a good painting job. They actually take the cabinets apart, they put it in the factory, they fill all the holes, and they make it look like brand new. Then, of course, they were 30-inch only cabinets, whereas the height demanded 42-inch. Actually, bringing my carpenter and my vision, and we put a lot of pieces. We put 5 pieces above their kitchen and made it look beautiful. And they could not, now when they couldn't recognize it, they were not originally thinking of changing the counters. They said, we want to use the same counters. They were great counters, they're saying. But when the cabinets came out so good, they said, oh, we want to really change the counters because the counters don't look good now. This is like one thing led to another, and their island was only 60-inch wide. And
Okay.
now they're having after that it should be 90-inch or 100-inch. So then I told them, look, now you just step aside and let me try to do the damage control. But I just kind of told them that it would have been much better if you had decided these things ahead of time.
Correct.
So lesson learned is that you need to plan well and then you need to really think that what exactly is your need. If your need is to have a wider counter, then you please decide ahead of time. And then also now when you're doing a wider counter and you're not using new cabinets, you're using old cabinets, then you need to plan and need to buy a similar cabinet, paint, even though you're buying brand new, but you still need to paint the same tone of color, even though it's white, but white has different tones too.
Correct.
And then I guess I tell you one more thing, that since they end up changing the counters as well, what happened is basically now they want to use the backsplash, and we already put the light rail. Now we had to take the light rail out and take a lot of pieces out and put the pieces back. It was almost 2 days of extra labor and a lot of wastage, maybe even $3,000 to $5,000 more than they would have spent if they would have planned better. So it's very, very important that you plan ahead of time, put the right sequence. Also, whoever you're talking to, you need to also make sure you listen to the advice as well. Because you could in the beginning say, no, I don't want to do it. And then you say you don't have the budget. But when you are in the middle of it, your budget also comes and your budget grows, the time grows. But believe it or not, even with all those changes, we were able to change the entire kitchen, the counter. We made the entire kitchen, 100% renovated in 1 week. We had the kitchen working again with 1 week by putting the new sinks, new faucet, new counters, and making the island bigger. It'll look $100,000 kitchen, even with $20,000 spent. Because of all the expertise we were able to, I don't know if you guys can envision that we were able to put the pieces of wood on top of the existing kitchen, and we put 5 pieces staggered so it doesn't look like monotone. It looked like part of the cabinet,
Yeah, that's amazing.
Then the other thing was that cabinets were old. It's very difficult to match the old cabinet with a new cabinet because we had to add the cabinet. So we then end up custom building the pieces in the back so they all look the same type of panels. We made those panels in the house. But the most important thing I want to say is that you need to have the right sequence. If you're going to even do the kitchen, you need to have the right sequence even inside the kitchen. For example, another client I had, they said, we do not want to do inbuilt pantry. Their pantry was made out of a regular closet. And now we are putting brand new kitchen. Once they put brand new kitchen, they realized that pantry does not go well. Because now it's an Oxford mist kitchen. It's a beautiful kitchen. But that pantry was looking very ugly. It was a white color plaster pantry.
Yeah.
So then they said, could you please change the pantry? And then we end up cutting the pantry. And when you have to cut the pantry, you cannot have exact dimensions. So we had to use our imagination and put some fillers and put some design on the fillers so that at the end of the day, it looked like one piece, And then this was the client who made a mistake. I told them that you need to change the floor, but they didn't listen. And now they're saying, wish we would have changed the floor. Yeah, they can still do it, but it's a little more hassle.
They started it backwards. They're doing everything in reverse.
It's a long of a short answer that you need to have right sequencing. And if you want to go more deeper in the sequencing, then I have a video called Planning Your Kitchen Renovation. Please watch that. And that methodology, you can use it for your other type of renovations as well.
Any renovation, your bathrooms, your bedrooms, even if you're taking down a wall or, opening up a room or something. So I think to kind of recap what you just said for people to have it in bite-sized chunks, I'm thinking, first off, you got to sit with whoever your significant other is and really go through the pros and the cons of everything that you may want to do or have to do, and then get someone like you involved who's going to do the work. Make sure you pick the right person that can understand your vision and then guide you, because you might have this whole plan out and then they talk to you and you're going to say, you know what, that's not how you want to do it. This is how you want to do it. All right.
So Chris, in that, I just want to add, for example, these clients example I gave you, if they had just a kitchen renovation guy, there was no way of getting these things done, because then they don't have the specialties I had to bring in. In these both cases, believe it or not, I had to have the kitchen designer, the kitchen seller, carpenter, finished carpenter, HVAC guy, because we had to really redo the ducting. Okay, and then we had to bring in, of course, the appliance. We need to bring the electrician, the plumber. We need to bring all those people. And if you plan well, and that's the reason I told you, within 1 week, we were able to dig out the entire old kitchen and put brand new kitchen with counters, plumbing, electrical, everything done in 1 week. See, this is what happened. A lot of time people take months to change the kitchen, do a kitchen renovation. We did it in 1 week, and we're not talking about small kitchen here. We're talking about over $1 million home. We're talking about $80,000 work here, or $100,000 work here. And to get all that work done with such customization and bring all those skills, that's the reason you need developer type person. If you get a fixer-upper, if you get a kitchen person, then you need to hire a plumber, you need to hire an electrician, you need to hire HVAC person. There's too many things in the air you have to connect. You have too many moving parts. So make sure you work with the person who actually have all this supply chain, so to speak,
Right.
and that they can bring in the people. But most importantly, plan it well with whoever you are going to work with. So Chris, I can talk all day on the details of doesn't work, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is how do you finance it? Where's the money come from, right?
Yeah.
So the money could come from, you can take a secondary mortgage, you can do HELOC. What is the best way? What is the quickest, fast, and most cost-effective way to really borrow the money and budget this whole thing?
So you hit it right on the head. So there's really three choices, and this is part of your planning, right? So you have your HELOC, your home equity line of credit. We'll get into that. A full cash out refinance, or a straight up second mortgage. So those are really your three options. So let's look at
Very good.
what the home equity line of credit would consist of. So that's the best, I think, overall option if you are doing a short-term project, right? And it acts like a credit card, and you only pay on what you draw from it. So in those people, in the example that you just used for your friends, I don't know how they might have money in the bank or whatnot, but say they were doing a mortgage. If they would have did a HELOC, that would have been the best option for them because they had to add to what they were doing. So they had access to money, where if they would have just took a cash out refi thinking their kitchen was 80 grand or 50 grand, and then it cost them 80 grand, now they already locked it up with one mortgage, and now they're hunting for more money again, right? So home equity line is the most cost-effective way because the closing costs are minimal compared to doing a cash out refi. But in some cases, a cash out refinance does make sense if you're doing a bigger job, right? It's great for full remodels. It replaces the mortgage you have. So if you have one of those interest rates in the 2s or 3s, I probably wouldn't want to touch that, right? It's in this rate environment. So you want to look at all of that as well, but it's if the rates are competitive with what you have, a little bit off, sometimes it makes more sense just to take out that big, huge lump sum and roll it into one loan, where the home equity line of credit is more of a flexible rate that changes because it's tied to prime. And right now, if we look at prime, it's at 7.75. Typically, these loans are prime plus an adder. One, even if it's straight up prime, or +1 or +2. So if you're taking out a substantial amount of money, that rate is going to be a little bit higher. So for example, if you have a 6% rate right now and you can get it all in at 6.5, even though the rate goes up, it may make more sense to just combine them into one loan. And then the last choice, go ahead. You want to go?
I just want to summarize because you are well versed in mortgage and financing terms, and homeowners may be dummies like me. So they may not understand. So I just want to summarize what three things you said. Number one, you said home equity line of credit. So I do honestly agree with you, and I recommend everybody should have home equity line of credit because it doesn't cost you anything to have it. I know you said closing costs less. Actually, if you're smart, your closing costs would be almost nothing. Right. Most bank who you get home equity line of credit, they pay for the lawyer and this and that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they only charge you $250 or $500 for doing assessment. But if you take their assessor's value or their book value, they have it through the town, then you're not paying anything. Just to give you an idea, the assessment and the assessor value is usually lower than the market value. And if you want to get market value, then you have to pay for the appraisal, which is $250, $300. And that's about it you have to pay. And sometimes the bank actually give you that money back too as an incentive. So you're right, the prime is 7.5, but reality is the home equity line of credit, because they have a very good collateral, they end up giving you at a very, very good rate. Sometimes some bank has a special running that they say for the first year will give you 3% or 4%.
Yep. I hand off a lot of people off to a couple local banks where I live that offer 5.5 right now for the first
Yeah.
year. And then it just recast at prime, even
Yeah.
without any added.
So,
It's great.
so I actually, over here, honestly, the home equity line of credit, if you are smart enough and you know, they are actually right around 5% and they have more than 1 year, they have 3 year, 5 year plan. But anyway, home equity line of credit, most important thing is when somebody told me very early on that you want to get home equity line of credit approved when you don't need it. You
Yeah.
don't get it when you need it. You get it approved when you don't need it because that's when your finances, your loan to value ratio, your job, everything is good. When you don't have a good job or when you're tight, then you will be very difficult to get. So get the home equity line of credit when you are in a good situation, you don't need it, and that is just like Chris said, it's a credit card. Use it only when you need to use it. Now, Chris, I'm going to ask you, and then the second option you said is a cash out. I think what I understood from cash out is that you basically pay your existing mortgage through getting a new mortgage altogether.
Altogether.
And now, let's say you have a 50% already equity build, the 30-40% equity build, and now you're doing the refinance. Cash out means refinance, and then you take basically $100,000-$200,000 out to use it for anything. You could use it for improvement, you can use it for business, you can use it for kids' education, you can use it for whatever else.
Yeah.
So as long as the rates are good. And then the third option, Chris, what was the third option?
Well, third option is just a standalone second
Mortgage. Second mortgage. How does second mortgage work? Please explain.
Well, you're going to you get that lump sum up front, right? So you get that one. So if you're doing $100,000, just say that you need that to you're doing your kitchen, your bathroom's over. You get that one lump sum, but people like that option because it's a predictable payment. It's fixed. So you know what you're getting, you know what your payment's going to be. So some people like it in that sense because it's great for defined, predetermined budget, projects that you already know what the project's going to be. You've already sat down with someone like you, Rich. You walked through the house. You told them exactly what their number's going to be. You've already turned over all the stones. That would preserve them for a better rate in that sense for that second mortgage, and it's a predictable payment. I still think I would go with the HELOC, obviously, for obvious reasons, because then you can pay when you play. So if you don't want to spend any, you got that, like you said, you got that safety net, right? But there's two other options too. There's the Fannie Mae has a home style project for renovations, and that's wrapped up in one loan. So say, for example, you want to put an addition onto your house, right? They'll go on the futuristic value of that home and give you the monies you need to do that whole improvement. So you'll get an appraisal as is, and then you hand in all that punch sheet from your contractor, right? That breaks down all the costs, and then the appraiser will take that and then give you the futuristic value based on those improvements to the home. And FHA also has one called the 203K loan. So they have an easy 203K, simple. It's like $35,000, so perfect for like a kitchen, on a smaller house, not quite the kitchen that you were doing, like on a huge, beautiful big house. But if you're going under 35, it's limited documentation for that. So really, you have the HELOC, just a cash out refi, a second mortgage, or these renovation loan options that you can do if you're doing bigger projects. And they'll go off of the futuristic value of the house based on the project that you're doing.
So, Chris, thank you. I think we want to keep it limited today to just up to this point. Next time, we are going to discuss more ideas that if people want to build auxiliary units or secondary units nowadays, in many states, they allow that you can have like a small 700, 1400, 900 square feet unit, which you can actually rent. You can have your basement approved that way in single family home, and then you can legally rent. I mean, it's another thing to rent something and you are not compliant. But if you want to be compliant and you want to build an auxiliary unit, then you can actually build that unit, and then we'll talk about financing of that unit and what are the options. So with that, I think, Chris, today we want to keep it short and sweet, and we want to give people a chance to continue with their families.
That's right. Well, thanks, Rich, for having me again on, and please stay tuned for more. This is really fun, and I believe people are going to get a lot out of these.
And I know we're going to put your contact, but go ahead and just say if people want to connect with you, what's the best way?
People want to connect with me, you can find me on YouTube with the Galli team, with Chris Galli, and then you can also find me on Facebook by my name, Chris Galli. I'm everywhere. If you just punch my name into Google, you'll find me.
All right. And my name is Rich Shaikh, and you can find me everywhere as well. But if you want to really look into my YouTube channel, it's at Richvmax, and the same is the Twitter handle, same is the TikTok, at Richvmax. With that, have a happy, healthy, holiday weekend. Enjoy with your family. We'll see you later.